This series of interviews with distinguished Scottish women artists is titled Scottish Women Can Paint and came about as a riposte to the statement made by the German painter George Baselitz, who said, "Women can't paint," when asked why women were so unrepresented in art museums and exhibitions. These interviews with and about prominent Scottish women artists sets out to disprove that belief and try to understand how, against incredible odds, a group of dedicated women painters have managed to create some of the best paintings produced in Scotland and abroad during the last half of the 20th century. Today, I'm talking to June Redfern, a landscape and figure painter in the Scottish Expressionist tradition. She was born in 1951, studied at the Edinburgh College of Art from 68 to 72. Before we begin, June, I have a outside question for you. If George Baselitz, within earshot, said women can't paint, and you heard him, what would you say back to him?
I would turn them upside down so that he painted properly.
Very good. I actually liked his upside down paintings.
Okay.
For a great answer.
Right.
So we have a list of questions which are simply a basic structure, and we're going to go off them because what we really want to talk about is you and your painting.
Yeah, okay.
But let's just get the basics down. Number one, where and when were you born?
I was born in Fife, in St Andrews.
St Andrews, and in 1951.
Yes.
As I
I'm
said.
a Fife bairn.
But you still haven't quite lost your Fife accent.
Certainly not.
The Kingdom of Fife.
The Kingdom.
Was there any interest of art in your family background?
No. My mum did a lot of craft and stuff like that, but I used to come home from school and just draw. And I'm delighted to see my granddaughter does that too. So.
Well, then, did anyone outside your family in your formative years encourage you?
Just at school, really.
Marina Abramovich said, "You cannot become an artist. Either you're born an artist or not." Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree with it, but I think people can help you. I think I was very lucky because I grew up in Fife and there was a socialist tradition of good education system. And I had a wonderful art teacher who taught me about perspective and middle space and making, all that kind of stuff. So you just get the tools to help you to make paintings.
So you're saying even before you went to art college?
Oh, absolutely. I think I actually think I learnt more at school than I did at art school.
Well, that doesn't surprise me in some ways. Because that brings me on to my next question.
Right.
Which I know. Did you go to art school? Where and when?
Edinburgh College of Art, 68 to 72 and then 72 to 73. And
that is where we first met.
It is.
Well, I saw you in the distance, a glittering star, glamorous.
I love the glittering star look.
What was your experience at art school? And we're going to have a couple of kind of feminist-related questions. One of these was, how would you say you were perceived and treated by your male tutors and compatriots? Any differently, you think?
Well, you would expect you to sleep with them. Fact, And in fact, David Meekie made a point of saying when he became head of painting, because his predecessor did in fact sleep with quite a few, said if any members of staff are caught sleeping with students, they're out.
Well, of course, because I was doing
and good for him.
Yeah, I was doing art history as well, and it was fully expected that the art history tutors had the female students sleep with them. So
totally.
That is true. One forgets how these things were accepted in the 60s and early 70s.
I know, actually, it's quite shocking, really, when you think about it. Well, not shocking, but it's a bit kind of...
Was there another question then? Was there a kind of camaraderie with the female students and things? I mean...
No, they just all bitch about each other.
That's what Margaret Hunter said.
Put a load of women together and they'll all claw your eyeballs out,
Yes.
I'm going to be really popular. I'll be getting people tweeting and saying, I know. I'll be worse than J.K. Rowling for coming out with this one. Good.
No, I'm glad that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's for people to understand.
It was the 60s. Everybody was called Jenny, and they were all gorgeous, and they all looked like, what's her name in The Graduate? Catherine Ross. Everybody. And they all had long hair.
Well, you were pretty gorgeous.
I know,
then.
but I was a bit more fussy. I wasn't
Yeah.
going to sleep with a guy
No,
with a
of course.
beard and a kind of...
And of course, you did hang around with Brent Miller, who was the kind of the best dressed kind of.
But he was a Mick
architect.
Jagger lookalike,
Yes,
wasn't he?
so,
Yeah.
I mean, you were a glamorous couple.
We
I
were
can tell you.
glamorous in those days. We did glamour.
Yeah.
We felt fine about it,
Yes.
you know.
What recognition did you receive at art school, and how did that compare to that received by your male compatriots?
Well, I got a postgrad at Inverleith, which is Inverleith House, is it
Yeah.
now? Beautiful place, lovely
Yeah, 'cause I
studio.
did printmaking there as well.
Yeah,
So,
and it was good for printmaking.
Yeah.
But we were never there. We never did anything, you know.
that's the whole point.
That's the whole point
of being at art school is to find yourself.
to find yourself, you know. And we certainly did a lot of that.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't really think that I actually ever learned anything. I think it was because nobody taught me how to mix paints or anything. I learned how to make stretchers and stretch
Oh,
a
I
can.
did
Mr.
too.
Butchart, who was a
Yeah,
wee man
yeah.
that worked in, he was really good, and he was good at making
it.
sausage rolls as well.
He was a technician, and he just told us how to mix it, how to stretch a canvas, how to use rabbit glue and so on, but not how to do any painting. That was all we were ever taught.
You were never taught how to do anything.
Or which pencil to use.
And that's right. Or you know, like we had still life. We had Dennis Pepto. Actually, he was quite
I
good.
quite like Dennis.
He was good. He was quite practical and told you about how to mix colours. Then we had a life class, which was deadly boring, but it was useful.
Yeah.
And then we had Draped Life, which was that really camp model. And they used to always dress them up. They had a wardrobe. They had a wardrobe of clothes.
Which I removed things from occasionally for
Did you?
myself. Yes, actually, there were some quite good things in that wardrobe.
Yes, I think I remember that, Andrew. I think I remember a wee outfit or two, and that was Draped Life, but that was interesting. And so the more old-fashioned bits were fine,
Yes, and so the
but it
life
was all the
drawing-
other ones that were kind of trying to be conceptual and not quite pulling it off.
And you've said in your things before that at least the life drawing, that gave you a kind of basis that you could work on when you left art college to find yourself. At least you had that confidence.
Yeah, that's right. And you knew.
That we could draw. When people say, "Can they draw?" You say, "Yeah, I can draw, but I don't care to do it anymore."
Correct. That's right, because I was bored to tears and cried and ran off to the pub. At 11:30 to Clark's Bar.
Yeah. So to go on with that then, after that college, what was your first exhibition after art school, and how did you forge a professional career?
Oh, I think it was the Open Eye in Glasgow. Now, I remember seeing an exhibition and it was Kia, Clemente, my love, and someone else.
Was it
Cookie.
Oh, Cucci.
Cucci. And somebody, I think it was Clemente, had a painting of a man with a tree growing out of his back. And I'd just done one of a figure with a tree coming out their back, and I thought, collective unconscious.
Yes. Well, I do remember, we're going to get on to that a
Right.
bit later, but I'm going to jump on it then, because I do remember that when we first, the 369 started showing our young Scottish painters' works in Chicago and LA, people compared you, Caroline and Fiona, to the young new European expressionists, people like Raina Fetting.
Oh, I love
Clemente,
Raina.
and Raina
He's
Fetting,
come
I
back in
think,
fashion again.
Has he come back?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
he was a very good painter.
And Schnabel. I love
And
Schnabel.
he showed with the Rab Gallery, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, they were good.
I'm not so sure about Schnabel. Anyway, back to our list.
He had dinner plate. Oh, I love Schnabel.
The dinner plates. Well, I was in an exhibition, the opening exhibition in West Broadway of Castelli, where those dinner
Oh,
plates
yeah. And
were hung
angels.
the first
Oh,
time
yeah.
in about 1981 or something. And plates started falling off them and smashing because they hadn't been very secure. And I always remember saying Clement Greenberg on some of the new American abstract expressionists was asked if he really liked them. He said, "No, but I dislike them so much, I'm sure they're going to be really great, so I'm supporting them. That's exactly what I felt about Chanel at that exhibition. People said, do you like it? I said, like Greenberg said, I dislike this so much, I'm sure it's going to do very well. Of course he did. Then the question is, how did you actually think of forging a professional career, or did you not even think about it?
I didn't think about it, it just kind of happened.
So how did you survive financially?
Well, I taught for a bit, taught art, and then I got jobs in colleges and stuff like that from time to time, and just ran up a lot of debt, basically. As you do, you know, as we all do. And I think that's something maybe that people are so shocked now in what's happening now, that they think, oh yes, we haven't got any money, we've all been furloughed. Well, hello, what are artists doing? What are musicians doing? Doing what they always do, they never have any money, you know. They're lucky if they get paid, and so it's just a way of being. It's just you cannot think about that. You would never do it. You just can't.
Though, I mean, so did you feel when you were teaching you were able to paint?
Oh
as
yeah.
Well?
Oh.
So that it didn't.
I've always painted.
Well, I've always remember you doing so,
Yeah.
but I just wondered that some people say, unless they can devote their whole life to painting, they can't do it.
Do you want to do it, you'll do it. You just paint in your kitchen, which some of us did.
Well, I think we all did.
We all painted in our kitchen. We didn't have fancy studios, we didn't.
Do you feel you've received the recognition you deserved for your work?
I don't think.
Did you get reviews? You must have had reviews.
Yeah, but I don't remember what they were. I mean,
I can't.
no.
And what about sale reception to them then, as compared to now? What about sales then?
Well, I sold work. I've always sold
Well,
work.
I mean, that 1981 show,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
sold most of it.
Yeah, I mean,
even one to me.
Yeah. Where is it? Who's got it?
So would you say there was an audience for your work from the start?
I don't think about it. I think people are always interested in this. You know, you meet clients, and of course you meet people, and they say, are you aware of what you're painting? I think it depends. If you've got, I think one always comes under pressure from any gallery up to a point who'll say, well, we want this, we want this, we want size, and do. And I mean, I've had ridiculous people saying, oh, well, we couldn't sell that because it had too much red in it, or people saying it rained today, so nobody came into the gallery. And they've always got silly names, a lot of these people, you know. So you just take it on the chin, and it's not, you can't think about it. You can't think about it. You just have to paint, you know.
Well, you're not painting for an audience, is basically
You're not
you're
painting.
saying you're painting for yourself.
I think some people do.
Yes.
I think some people do, and I think some artists have galleries that really, really manipulate their career. Well, that's all right, maybe if you're getting £500,000 for a picture. Or
So in that sense, because I've always seen that curating an exhibition is like editing a book of poetry. That the poet has produced the works, the artist has produced the works, but you've got to put them together and make a selection so that they will fit within the space and relate to each other. But I wouldn't, because I was a practicing painter myself, I wouldn't go any further than that. And I know that some galleries do.
I mean, I think painting is like an iceberg. This is one of my comments, that what you see on the top, you see a seventh, and it's underneath. It's all the stuff underneath, you know, that goes with it. And I think you have to acknowledge what's underneath and be aware of it and paint it. There's a wonderful thing on YouTube, Richter. See, I love Richter because he changes from figurative to abstraction, flips about, and there's a wonderful clip of him on YouTube, and he's doing one of these huge abstract paintings with a great big squeegee on it, right? And he's got this lassie, this assistant, and he's working away. She's doing, you know, and they're working back and forth, and it's quite a mess actually. He steps back and he just says, "That's not working, is it?" And I think, brilliant. You know, how fabulous is that, and how honest is that? And I just think, oh well, there's hope for me. If Richter can be like that, so can I. And it's that sort of, and it never fails to amaze me. I had to finish a couple of pictures, and I'm the deadline queen, you know, like, and I knew someone was coming at 10:30 to photograph them. I was still painting a wee ear or something. You think, I've done this since I was at art school, or since I was a child, and I still can't get it right, you know. And it's that sort of, you have to kind of, and it's really interesting this, you have to kind of step out of it and just go, But to get to that, I don't care if this works. I don't care if this works or not, because it's not working. And it's getting into, and it really fascinates me, this, that you get into that kind of mindset. There's a wonderful story about Peter Blake staying up all night trying to get someone's eyelash right. And I've been there, stayed up all night, and it's a waste of time. Because you just end up getting angrier and angrier and making a bloody mess, you know.
Then you have to scrub it out and start again.
Scrub it out and start again, and it's just...
And then the scrubbing out bit looks quite good, actually.
That's right. That's right, and it's just that kind of, what am I doing? Oh, right, okay, you know.
I mean, there's a question I was going to come on to much
Right.
later, but you've just done it with a gesture. And it was a question I was asked to ask you. Does living in a female body and the experiences you've had as a woman impact on your practice in painting? Let's say if painting is about gesture, and you were making very eloquent gestures a few moments ago, what is it about different bodies which produces different gestures? That was from Hilary Robinson.
Was it? Oh, that's very deep. I don't know.
It was the way you were gesturing that made me think something.
Was that very female? Like
It was
men do it.
No, I think, but it's more... I thought it was more, that was more poetic the way you gestured than a man would probably go on, you know, like more
Well,
like
I do
that.
Tai Chi, Andrew, now, so... yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I think... Do you think women... So what you're saying is, you think women paint differently from men because they're physically built in a different way?
That's the question. I don't think that.
I don't
know
think
that.
so. I don't think so. I don't feel like a woman when I'm painting. I just feel like a painter.
Well, I mean, because it's the other question.
It's the other self, isn't it?
Yes.
It's because the only way to paint is outside your skin. You have to paint out your skin, I think, yeah.
Well, then to go back,
Right.
throughout your career, how have you defined success as an artist?
Well, if I paint, I think if I've painted a painting, I know it's bloody good. That's, to me, that's... And you do know, I think you do know. I think at the end of the day, you can think, that was a good one.
I can get away with others, but that's what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, that's a really good painting.
Do you feel you've received the recognition you deserved for your work?
Yeah, I do actually. I think one can always do better. I'm hoping that the next bit of my life will be I'll paint even better pictures and get more money for them.
Well,
That's what. Yeah. But I think we're in a funny time. I think we're in a very strange time.
It's what you were saying earlier about people buying things on the internet. How can they tell the quality of a painting?
Or
of
smell
yours?
it or feel it.
And
or,
you said smell it as well, which is absolutely true.
you know, and I think if you've got, I think you see painting as, I mean, I love what I call proper painting. I love going to Venice. I love Bellini. I love Veronese. I mean, anybody in my opinion can paint a wee dog and it looks amazing. Must be good, you know. I mean, and you look at paintings like that and they just change your life, you know. And that's what painting should be like. So how can it change your life if it's on the internet? Maybe it can.
What artists influenced you, and what are your touchstone artworks?
You mean other people's artwork?
Yeah.
Oh, Bellini. Bellini in San Zaccaria is just... Because he paints the girl next door. I mean, the Virgin Mary is the lassie next door, you know, and they're just... And the colour, oh God, the colour is just that cobalt violet and madders, and you just, oh, that's it, you know.
Did you engage with current events in the last 50 years or so?
What do you mean?
Well, for instance, Margaret Hunt had painted things about the Berlin Wall coming
No,
down.
no.
Yours, I think,
No, I'm more interested
be
in...
much more poetic.
And dreams, you know, and they're dreamlike kind of things. It's sort of eternal things, I suppose. I'm trying to paint things that are people sitting down, people, you know, just very basic things.
Yes.
But it's the interpretation and the way you paint it. I think it's terribly important the way things are painted.
Caroline McNairn once said in reference to her landscapes, it all revolved round the hill, the stream, the tower. This was in reference to her border background. To what themes do you return and why?
Well, I always just put figures in line and horses and images that I like that work as paintings. You know, I'm a great believer in composition. I suppose that comes back from when I was taught at school. I mean, I went to Redfern High. I had a wonderful art teacher, and we were taught, you know, that you put paintings together, and that's how you put them. And composition, I think, is phenomenal. You know, like something like if you cut the top of someone's head off, it makes a much more interesting painting. And little things, tilting things. And I think somebody like Peter Doig is absolutely shit hot at that. And I really admire people that can put. I mean, I'm not a Chagall fan actually, but somebody that can put something up in the ceiling and it looks okay, you know, up in the top of a picture. I can't do that. I don't have that kind of, I don't know why. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, your paintings are always grounded in
They're
a way.
grounded, and I'm that kind of, sometimes I think, I wish they weren't grounded, but it's just the way I think I was brought up. I'm quite old-fashioned actually.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, and don't take this wrongly,
No.
I mean it in the kind of 18th century sense.
Yeah.
I think your paintings used to be more expressionist, the ones, for instance, that I sold to the Gallery of Modern Art, My Baby Moon, wonderful big ones, or the City Arts Centre, what was it called, On the Edge of the World or something?
Can't remember.
I mean, these were 8 foot by 8 foot paintings, big figurative things. Kind of powerful, totemic. Now it seems to me they're much more romantic, elegiac, poetic.
Yeah.
And I mean romantic in the 18th century way of Turner. And that is what I'm thinking. Was Turner not
Oh,
that song?
Turner's amazing.
Once an idea starts to form, what is the next step? Can you explain something about your artistic process?
I change my mind quite a lot. I have a kind of idea. Sometimes I sketch things out. If I can't get something to work, you know, I'll just go in and watch the telly and watch NCIS or something like that late at night and just start working around it, get away from what I'm trying to do.
So do you actually do sketches?
Vague little scribbles. Scribbles, really. And never in pencil. They're always in what you're not supposed to do, you know, like biro and stuff like that. And then just muck about with them and then work it out.
But then, and you always work on oil, don't you, really? Apart from a few
No, I do watercolours, less and less though, but I prefer oils.
Yeah, because it's something very tactile about it and viscous in all your paintings. I think that is very important. I've always envied your abilities from the very beginning in oil paint.
Really?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And maybe that is something to do with the gesture. You seem to be able to handle it and have the strength to handle it.
I think it's also what you use as well. I think you have to use really good stuff, you know. And I use really expensive stuff. It's got high damar varnish in it, which gives it translucence, you know. And you have to. Yeah, it's something I'm working on. I think I'm more and more. I think the surface to me is how it's painted is more important. How you paint it, it's so important, and how you deal with it as well. How you deal with an image, because you can change, as you know, you can change an image 100 times and make it paint it in different ways. You know, you could paint a figure on horseback 50 times, 100,000 times, and it would be different. You know.
To what extent did you identify your contemporaries and feel part of the Scottish art world, art scene?
Not really, no, because I left. I mean, I went to London.
Before you left, did you feel?
Nah, not really. No,
Well,
not terribly.
Then that brings us absolutely on to the next question, which I really wanted to ask. So, did you consider the Scottish art world too insular, and were you looking to broaden your experience through getting out to international connections?
Yes, I did. I felt I had to get out of Scotland, yeah.
When Carol Gibbons was described as the greatest living Scottish woman painter, she replied, "Leave out the woman bit." Do you believe there is a particular female artistic sensibility, or is it all a matter of personal experience, ability, and opportunity, whether or not you're male or female?
I think it depends on what time you were talking. I mean, now I don't think it matters. I think then it was pretty sexist. Yeah, it was. There were very few women artists, and there were a lot of women artists that were married to men who were artists and were expected to run around and make the bloody tea. Yeah. and mix and run around for them. You know, somebody's babe, and that was the 60s, and then it's only till pretty recently, actually.
Well,
you know.
And that also brings me to another one of the questions that Hilary suggested. Today in the UK, although 2/3 of art students are women, less than a quarter of exhibiting artists are women. As a female artist, did you feel you had more difficulties to overcome than a
Yeah,
man?
sure, of course, yeah. And a lot of sexist. I mean, I remember, and I'm not going to mention who it is, saying to me, a woman that was a lecturer at Edinburgh College of Art, saying to me, "You're quite ambitious." And I said, "Would you say that to a man?" I mean, if you want to paint, you'll paint. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, you make, yeah.
Well, it does.
You can't really think like...
Marina Abramovich, you're either, can't be made an artist, you're born it. I mean, that sounds a little bit kind of hooky, a bit hokey.
A bit what?
But, well, she said, you cannot become an artist, you have to be born one. You're almost saying that you had no choice. But
That's right, that's right. But you can't think about obstacles. I mean, you can't think about... I mean, the time is so important, the times that we're talking about. Then, I mean, that's a long time ago, you know, and we're changing, and now things are just so much different. There are hundreds of women artists. I mean, look at Tracy Emin, for goodness sake, you know, who has overcome, especially at the moment, and overcome a lot of stuff, you know, and good luck to her. But, you know...
So, I mean, do you think it would have been easier if you'd been born male?
Probably, yeah, I would
Probably
think.
wouldn't have been such a good painter.
Well, that's right, yeah.
But, so therefore, it is a way your sensibility, it's not female sensibilities, it's your sensibilities, surely, which inform your life experience, is what informs your paintings.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
So, how necessary is discipline, and what quality do you think is almost needed to be a successful
Oh, you have
artist?
to do it you have to paint all the time. I mean, even if you're not painting in your studio or painting, you're thinking about it and you're working ideas out and stuff. It's just what you do. It's like you get up and you know, have a cup of tea. You start thinking about... I mean, I work pretty much 9 to 5, or I don't overwork. I don't do... Actually, as I've got older, I'm painting less in time. And I think I'm painting better for that, because I'm not overworking things. I'm not getting anxious. I think as you get older, you get less anxious. In fact, somebody said to me once, the older you get, the more abstract your paintings become. But I don't know if it's not true of me. I think, yeah. I mean, to me, that's too kind of...
No, I think it may be the more simplified in some ways. I don't think
simplified, yeah, and you don't need to kind of fuss over things. Yeah. You don't need to kind of fuss over. You think, oh, and the answer is just to get big brushes, which I'm a bit. Is to get some huge whacking brushes, actually.
You see, these are the technical things one should be asking a question about.
Of course, just get decent brushes that size. I used to buy loads of them. You can still get them.
But another question I was going to ask you, a kind of rather poetic one. Lil Nielsen once said, Joan Airdley was attempting to paint the near impossible synthesis of painting experience. Is this a conundrum you recognise in your own work?
Well, she had the subject matter, though, didn't she? She painted the sea and all that stuff.
Yes, and the landscape, so...
I made a film about her, we made a film about Airdley, and I don't think about Airdley now. To me, I never think about her as a painter. I think there's been so many Scottish artists have tried to be Airdley. Get your thick paint on and whack it on, and, you know, do you know what I mean?
Yes,
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly.
And you think, oh no, there's another Airdley. And it's actually put me off Airdley.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I mean,
Yes, it's a chocolate box quality. It's the same with the Scottish colourists, who I loved when I was at art college. And now everyone loves them, I can't stand them. And also with Airdley, who I love, I find it difficult. It's like I used to be a Constable fan, but when you've seen enough Constables on biscuit tins and things, it kind of puts you off. And then when you look at a Constable carefully, you realise what a great painter he was.
Oh no, I don't,
So I do think that Airdley is possibly overrated for all the wrong reasons, sentimental reasons, and the actual handling of paint. And I mean, that's what I love about you, is the handling of paint. I'm not comparing you
No.
to Eardley, but I'm just wondering if when you're in the middle of that maelstrom of paint, when you're tied to that mast in your studio and you're going at it, you know, if you feel you can ever produce the perfect painting.
Well, I'd like to think I could, but the answer is to put them on the floor and throw a load of turpentine over them, which is what one does, which I do.
Which I may say is absolutely the correct thing to do, because my favourite Turner story, which everyone gets wrong, is Turner used to stay at Petworth as a guest of Lord Egremont, where he did all those marvellous Petworth paintings, the interiors, the deer park. And Lord Egremont's daughter was being taught by Turner. And she came in one day when Turner was at lunch with a whole group of grandees at Petworth, showing a watercolour, and showed
And
it
they're
to,
wonderful, the ones there.
and showed it to Turner, who said in front of everyone, "My dear, it would be a damn sight better if you put it in a barrel and scrubbed it with a scrubbing brush." To which she burst into tears and fled. But of course, and everyone says that's the rudeness of Turner. That's exactly what Turner did.
Of course.
It's exactly what he did when he overworked, and it's what you were saying. So once again...
Watercolours, put them in the bath.
Yeah, of course. Once again in Turner's footsteps. Listen,
Absolutely, put them in the bath.
it's been delightful talking to you. There's one last question I'm going to ask you. And finally, if you were talking to a young female art student, what advice would you give her?
Gie it laldi. Just go for it. Just go for it, hen. Go for it, and just don't think about anything else. Just do it. Put it on the floor and throw some turps over it, and you'll be all right. But to change things, to be able to change your work and not be frightened to change it, and that's something that people hang on to. And I think maybe it's expense as well. You think, oh God, it was 2 tubes of, you know, something there that's 74 quid for a tube of paint. You think, I've just spent £150 on this, and it's not working, you know. And I'm fortunate enough that can afford to do that. And I think that does hold people up, especially younger artists. They're worried about, try and think of a way around that. But you have to be able to have the confidence to say, like the wonderful Richter, this is not working. I'm going to change it. Because there's nothing worse than being stuck in limbo with a picture. You know, you just want to put your foot through it or something. And one does. You know, I mean, one throws one's paintings out the window. But you have to be able to change it and have the confidence just to say, this is crap.
Thank you, June. It's been a delight catching up with you and talking to you today.